Welcome back to the Don't Stop Me Now podcast, where being negative can be a good thing and being positive can turn the world against you. Hello, I am your HIV positive host. My name is Miss Jennifer Levon, and this is episode number 123 of the Don't Stop Me Now podcast. It is December 1st. It is World AIDS Day. This is a day every year designated to bringing awareness to the world about HIV and AIDS. I'm sitting here holding my Freddie Mercury Funko doll as part of my celebration. I don't know. It's a weird word to use for AIDS and World AIDS Day. But I guess it is a celebration of life for those of us who survived an AIDS diagnosis. Back in the day, we would not have survived that. Most of us would have not survived it. So, of course, it's a day to celebrate those who are here and also to remember those who succumbed to the virus and didn't get the chance that we got to survive. So, and there are millions of them that did not make it. I have a list of statistics that I will go over today to kind of give you a little bit of perspective of where we are with our sorry, I'm just checking my mic. Is this recording me properly? Yes, it is. Okay, I just need to bring it a little bit closer. Yeah, where we are today on track with ending the epidemic and how far we've come since the beginning of the epidemic, which some trace back to like the 50s and 60s, that the virus could have been around back then, but really the main boom of the virus happened in the early 80s. And of course, people are still contracting the virus today. It has not gone away. Still here 40 years later, at least 40 years later. And I am a person living with HIV today and living a very normal life with it. Okay, before we get into more about World AIDS Day, I just wanted to point out that my brother had sent me a voice memo and said that the exfoliator and viral load little images that he sent to me of those words kind of like all, they look like almost like they were on a Richter scale, like the lines were up and down and they look very rock and roll. I thought those were really the names of a band, but that was just a joke. Those were names that he was giving to possible death metal bands as he had listened to my podcast, because my brother Brian does listen, and I had talked about, becoming a big time exfoliator now that I understand what it does for our bodies, because it really does slough off a lot of skin that we will eventually slough off on our own, but why not get rid of it a little bit sooner and not let it build up? So yeah, that exfoliator, be doing the exfoliating. It's a good thing. Viral load is, self-explanatory. Okay, so I wanted to first tell a story about a dude that had come to me who was freaking out about a situation where he'd been with a sex worker, female sex worker, and apparently the condom he thinks had slipped. He doesn't think it came off, but he thinks it slipped a little bit, exposing the top of his shaft to her viral, quote unquote, viral wetness, which we all know that that's not how it's transmitted. It doesn't touch the top of a shaft, any female wetness, and give that person HIV. It doesn't go through skin. And plus, we also know that the amount of viral particles in female wetness is nothing compared to semen. There's just no comparison. It's closer to what we would see in saliva, which is trace, scant, not transmittable. But for those that believe that women transmit, I'll play into it a little bit and say that it's probably a little bit more than saliva. And but again, we're still dealing with the other half of it, which is a man who has a organ that's covered in skin. Again, how is the virus going to make it through that skin, especially the shaft? No, it's not going to happen. Anyways, this guy goes to a clinic for help with regards to this, tells them the story. Sex worker He's not sure the condom came off. He thinks it might have slipped down. He's freaking out. What do? They tell him he needs to get on PEP. So PEP is not free everywhere. So this is going to be a financial burden for this person. It can cause a lot of side effects, stomach issues, mainly is what I hear as far as like side effects with PEP. And psychologically, I think the whole experience of being on PEP that whole time freaks people out because they think, is it truly working? You know, am I actually, like, did the virus make it to me? Did I take it too late? And like, I'm just taking this for nothing and I really do have it. Or just the thought of every day I'm taking a medication because of this quote unquote exposure that I had to HIV. And now I've got this in my mind 24/7 for the next 30 days as I take this medication. But again, side effects. Like, why? Why go through all this? This was, to me, incredibly irresponsible of the clinic or hospital that suggested that this man go on PEP. It's a waste of all of those different things I just talked about. But I explained to him that, you know, if you go into a clinic, more than likely you're not going to be dealing with somebody who is really aware of risk for HIV. Truly, what is risk for HIV? When they hear sex worker and they hear condom slipped and they hear you're freaking out about HIV, they will say yes. Of course they will, because they hear HIV, and these are people that have not been trained in HIV at all. They just know some of it from nursing school or actually becoming a doctor, but it's not their focus. They're not experts on it. So when they hear worries about HIV and sex worker, they immediately feel there is a risk when there truly is none. So they will say yes. Of course, it's also liability. They don't want to have somebody coming in who's freaking out thinking they might have been exposed to HIV. So they are going to, of course, say you should go on PEP, because they don't know truly what this man has been exposed to. Maybe he's been with a man. Maybe he did have anal sex and he was the receiver. But I don't think that's the case. I think that they just heard sex worker, condom slipped, freaking out, HIV, and they say yes to PEP. But again, like, if you can see me here, my eyes are spinning. Like, this is ridiculous. So I put this on my story, I don't know, a couple weeks ago. And one of my friends chimed in to me, who happens to be a trans woman, born biologically male, is now changed to female because of surgery. She is aware, this has really nothing to do with it, but she is aware that she is not biologically a female. She knows that it's just surgically she is a female. She's very cool with all of that. Like, she's just so freaking forward thinking when it comes to her trans identity. And she says, you know what, I believe doctors do know it's a money source. She says that she does believe that they get that he didn't need it, but they feel that it's a money source. So the more treatment they push on us, the more money they make. By now, we all know the medical industry becomes a business. The best way to control the population is through fear mongering. This guy was me 10 years ago, not educated. So some medical providers use that to their advantage to make money. He had to get tested he had to get tested. He had to get medication. Most likely, he needs to follow up. This alone for the medical industry is a lot of money. Even though we all know the guy is still negative. I mean, it says California put me on PEP because I just made out having sex. I just made out without having sex. This is the point I want to make. She says she had sex. She did not have sex. She just made out with somebody. There was no sex. And she was put on PEP because she was not educated about HIV. And she said, and after that, they put me on PrEP for years, made me believe I had a risk of exposure. Waiting the 30 days on PEP almost killed me. I was young and trusted the medical industry. Again, put on PEP because she made out with somebody. There was no sex. After they caused me to have anxiety, stress, and depression in those 30 days, and after putting me first on PEP, then PrEP, they also referred me to therapy for the fear they caused by telling me I had a risky exposure for just making out with someone without sex, totally gaslighting me. When they told me, some of this is, it's not clear how it was written. When they told me there wasn't a risk to begin with, so when someone told her there wasn't a risk to begin with, and of course, me not having insurance at the time, I had to pay a lot of money even for the therapy session. So look at all of that. Was all unnecessary for, putting her on PEP, her needing therapy after because of the stress of it all of that. And it was out of her pocket. So you tell me, why are they putting people on PEP unnecessarily? No, you tell me. It's to save their asses, and it's to make money. And they don't care about us. We're just a number. We're a freaking number. They don't care. The government does not give a shit about us. We are just a number. Okay. Okay, I'll get into the HIV statistics in a second. I did want to mention this is totally unrelated to HIV. There was a Cybertruck crash in Piedmont Hills, which is near Oakland. It's a wealthy area. 4 teenagers inside, 19 years old, all of them. I guess the truck was speeding. They don't know what the speed limit was at the time of the crash, but it skipped a curb, hit a tree, burst into flames, and 3 teens died. 3 19-year-olds that were home for Thanksgiving break. A girl and 2 boys died at the scene. One was pulled from the wreck. He is suffering from a large majority of his body having burns. He did survive. He is expected to survive. Yeah, I'm just really sad and really scary. And I feel like it's like every 2 weeks I read something on the internet about teens dying in either motorcycle crashes or high-speed crashes. And it's so scary as a mom with 3 kids who all drive on their own. And I just thinking about those families today, and I don't know how they move on from this. It's really so tragic. And I'm just so sorry for their loss. Okay, so global statistics for HIV. Let's get into this for World AIDS Day. People globally living with HIV, the statistics are obviously just through 2023, because we'll have new statistics in 2025 that will be through 2024. But right now, these are just through the end of the year 2023. So globally, there were 39.9 million Americans living with HIV. There was a percentage I saw, hold on, about years past. Yeah, okay, so nope, that's not it. It's this one. Sorry, this page. Okay, so in the year 2000, there were 27.2 million people living with HIV. So now there are 39.9 million living with HIV. New infections. In the year 2000, there was 2.8 million new infections each year. We are now down to 1.3 million new infections globally. So we've cut that in half. And about 36,000 of those are in the United States. AIDS-related deaths. 2000, there was 1.8 million AIDS-related deaths. We are now down to 630,000. In the US, it's around 6,000. It's quite low. Nothing like it used to be because of the treatment available. But yes, people still die of AIDS-related deaths today due to a lot of, It's usually the social determinants of health that play into that. It can just be anything from people just in denial, not wanting to believe they actually have it, to depression for having it and not wanting to live anymore because they have it, to being diagnosed too late and there's no turning back. It still happens. So it definitely still happens today. People can die of AIDS in the United States, but 630,000, a lot of that is in Africa. Wow, new infections in children, 530,000. This is for children that are 0 to 14 years old in the year 2000. So 500,000 were born in the world with HIV or contracted it as young little kids, probably from breastfeeding, maybe through consensual sex at some point, and obviously through non-consensual sex at some point for some of these children between the ages of 0 and 14. In the year 2000, 530,000, again, were the new infection rates for that age range, and that's worldwide. Now that number has dropped about 75%, down to 120,000 in 2023. People accessing antiretroviral therapy back in 2000, it was about 500,000. These numbers are astounding and incredible. In 2023, so 500,000 and 200,000, hello, 500,000 and 2,000. In 2023, that number, this is people accessing treatment for HIV, is now 30.7, I'm trying not to cry, million. It's such a huge number. Like, it's a huge, huge increase. It went from under 1 million accessing treatment to 30 million in 23 years. So we have obviously come a long way with treatment, and that's incredible. But there are still, I think the statistic I read is that there are still, where do I need it? Where do I find that? How many that don't know each year? Okay, here we go. So 86% of all people living with HIV knew their HIV status in 2023. And they obviously went on treatment, 86%. But about 5.4 million people do not know their status and do not know that they're living with HIV. That is in 2023. So 5.4 million. So 39 million living with HIV in the United States, 30 million on treatment, 5.4 million unaware that they have HIV, which leaves about, let's see, 40 minus 5, that's 35, that's 5. About 5 million know and are not on treatment. That's what I'm figuring from these statistics. About 5 million know they have HIV but are not accessing treatment. And why are they not accessing treatment? It's those social determinants of health is why. And stigma plays into that as well. Big time. Big time. Okay. Let's see. We'll go into, okay. People living with HIV accessing antiretroviral therapy at the end of 2023, 30 million people were accessing, that's what I said, up from 7.7 million in 2010, but still short of the 34 million target for 2025. In 2023, 77% of all people living with HIV were accessing treatment. Okay, I did that one. 84% of pregnant women living with HIV had access to antiretroviral medications to prevent transmission of HIV to their children in 2023. 84%. It's amazing. Thank God. Thank God for that. Babies truly are not born today with HIV. That is not something that we really focus on anymore because of our medication available. Babies don't have to be born with HIV today because of the treatment available. The virus doesn't have to keep spreading because of the treatment available today. But because of stigma and barriers in access to treatment in some parts of the world, the virus continues to spread. But again, if everybody today who has HIV knew their status and was on treatment, the virus would end with us. It does not continue because once you're on treatment, we cannot transmit HIV to anyone else sexually. Okay. Investments. At the end of 2023, the US, it says 19.8 billion was available for the AIDS response in low and middle income countries. That doesn't make sense. Hold on. At the end of 2023, US 19.8 billion in constant 2019 United States dollars was available for, okay, that our money was available to help reduce the spread in low and middle income countries. Around 59% was from domestic sources. Funding for HIV dropped by 5% from 2022 to 2023 and by 7.9% between 2020 and 2023. So funding dropped during the Biden administration, 5% between 2022 and 2023, and another 7.9% between 2020 altogether and 2023. So everybody blames Trump, saying that he's going to be taking funding away and there's going to be an increase in prices of medication. We shall see. I mean, funding already happened during the Biden administration. I didn't hear anybody yelling about that. Funding is far short of the $29.3 billion, which will be required for the AIDS response in low and middle income countries, including countries formerly considered to be upper income countries, in 2025 to get on track to end the AIDS epidemic as a public health threat. So apparently funding is not where it needs to be to help bring us to an end of the epidemic by 2025. This frustrates me. Median HIV prevalence among the adult population ages 15 to 49 was 0.8 globally. However, because of marginalization, discrimination, and in some cases criminalization, median prevalence was higher among certain groups of people. That seems so low. 0.8. Oh, they just mean, okay, it's not low. I guess it means people between the ages of 15 and 49, 8.8%. No, that's freaking 80%. 0.8%? No, it's not 80%. It's under a percent. So they're saying people between the ages globally, between 15 and 49, 0.8% of them have HIV. That's what it is. Okay. 2.3% higher among young women and girls aged between 15 and 24 in Eastern and Southern Africa. 7.7 higher among gay men and other men who have sex with men. 3% higher among sex workers. Again, they don't clarify the gender of the sex workers. That needs to be clear, and it's not. Do not believe that this is female sex workers. I believe it's trans women who have biological male parts, and I believe it's male sex workers. I have yet to have a man come to me in the 9 years that I've been doing this freaking out about HIV who's been with a female sex worker ever turn out positive for HIV. Not one time. Not one time. So I get really tired of this generalization of sex workers when they do not clarify the gender of the sex worker. That needs to be clear. 5% higher among people who inject drug use. And let's see, this is again this is the median prevalence among the adult population of 15 to 49. So it's now 5% higher among people who inject drugs, 9.2% higher among transgender people, and 1.3% higher among people in prisons. People, come on, say men, because women are locked up with women. We know women are not transmitting this to other women. They say people because there are trans women in prison as well. And we know what happens with them in prison. We know how they're used by the male population. We know men have sex with men in prison. I wish they would be clear about how HIV is spread. But they leave a lot of this information sort of like gray. It's not clear. And anybody reading this who didn't have a background in advocacy would assume that people just meant anybody, but it doesn't. Okay. Any more stats I want to follow up with here? Resources available. This is in the US. It says back in 2000, the funding available was 5.1 billion. It is now 19.8 billion, but 2020 it was 20.5 billion. So it has come down about 2 billion in the last, from 2020 to 2023. And that's definitely an issue because it costs money to figure this shit out. It does. I think that's about all I wanted to say. I kind of was, I don't know, like I'm not dreading today, but I used to feel really, I don't know. I used to feel like really emotional about World AIDS Day and that I was a part of it. And I was like connected to all of these people that have died in the past of HIV and AIDS. Well, they've died of AIDS. They didn't die of HIV. They died of AIDS-related illnesses caused by HIV. But I've gotten more jaded in my advocacy, obviously, and I feel like there are a lot of victims out there and a lot of people who had trusted partners who were, having sex behind their back. And of course, I'm speaking mostly about women who have, I feel, been completely victimized by this virus and had no idea that they were ever being exposed in the first place because they didn't know what their partners were doing with men. And so I feel a little differently about World AIDS Day. I feel frustrated for this demographic that I feel is like really, we don't have our own space. And I mean, you wouldn't know this unless you lived with HIV. You wouldn't understand unless you lived with it and you were a woman seeking support. You wouldn't understand unless you were that person, because trying to find that is really hard. Trying to find just women who have HIV is not easy, and especially in the United States, because our numbers are not that high. Like in general, HIV is rare today. Like when you can think about 38,000 new infections a year and there's 330 million people living in the United States, that's still very low. It's like 1%. So like to find, then like the women that comprise that percent is even lower. So for us to find the support that we want It's just not there because there's not a lot of us that exist. And so we are forced to join arms with the gay community, who largely comprises new infections and infections in general. But that's where our virus came from. It came from our men fooling around, doing things with other men, which is either men from the gay community or just having gay sex in general. So it's different for me how I feel about it. I feel frustrated for these women, and I still stand by how I felt in June, that, women are rarely transmitting this, and God forbid we speak about how we got it and how we feel about it, we will be silenced, and we will be told that we're homophobic. We'll be told that we have a vendetta against gay men, and we will be told that we absolutely can transmit it, even though the numbers don't support that. So, being a woman with HIV is a very lonely place to be because we don't identify with the gay community. That's not our community. So, I feel a little differently about World AIDS Day. It's a feels like it used to feel like this connective. I had this like connected feeling. And I just I don't know. I don't have that anymore. I I feel like I want to distance myself from the whole thing. And I don't want my whole identity and personality and everything that I do be related to HIV, obviously. Um, I've been working in this classroom with these three women and talking to lots of different teachers, and we have lots of different um, support staff that come in for the kids. And I've not shared my story with anybody. I'm going to Washington, D.C. and on Wednesday, and I haven't told them why I'm going. I don't really want them to know. I'm good with I've been hired into this classroom now. I'm good with none of them knowing my story. I don't want any of them looking at me differently. I don't want any of them feeling concerned in any way, thinking that I am a threat in any way for like even the smallest thing, changing a band-aid or, you know, food that's, in the classroom, picking up a cookie and maybe I touched another cookie, anything like that. Believe me, people have these thoughts. That if I sneezed, that if I was near somebody, that I could possibly transmit HIV to them. I know that seems crazy, but it is true. People do think this. So I don't feel the same way about it. I'm not so proud to talk about it publicly anymore, like as far as in my small circles. I used to feel like I wanted people to know what I was doing. I was really proud of what I was doing. It's not like I'm not proud of what I'm doing, but it's not like I just don't want people to know. I don't want to be looked at differently. I want to be the person I was before. I don't want this. I don't want this hanging over my head, And I'm still doing my medication the way I want to. I'm still doing the every other day to every third day. I'll be having my blood drawn in a month, and we'll see where I'm at. The one, not to go on a tangent here, but the once a week, it's going to be basically, I believe it's going to be, from what I was told by a woman who had talked to her doctor about it, everything's looking really good for that, for it to be the once a week pill. But apparently it's going to be all of our medication will have this ability to be like a slower release. I guess that's how it's going to work. I don't know that we have to go on new treatment. I think it's a mechanism for the medication. It's going to be, that's what I believe. It's going to be like a slow release. So let's just hope that that happens. That would make me feel better knowing it's once a week. instead of every day. It would help for sure. But yeah, so it's a little, uh, what's the word? Um, I don't know. I'm just a little blue about World AIDS Day today. I used to feel so excited about like this is our day to let everybody know we're here, and this is what we're going through, and this is what you all should know about us. And yeah, I just feel a little bit quieter about it, and don't feel like saying a whole lot or making that big statement. I'll probably do a TikTok, but that's that's where it'll end. Um, so, anyways, I'm going to keep this short and sweet. I need to run to Costco. We just had Thanksgiving the other day, and that was nice. It was with my ex-husband and my kids. And I'll just throw in really quick. Oh my God, I almost said his name. I said really crisp, which is his name. Really quickly, that the Chris, the favorite, has contacted me again. We've been chatting back and forth for like the last few weeks. Haven't seen him. We did have a discussion on the phone for like an hour and a half the other day, just about how he's doing. It's always all about him. He talks a lot. Anyways, and we talked about, that fact that I feel like I want to be celibate and stay that way. And he thought that was incredible. And he talked about how he'd still love to see me and see if we could just be really honest about our feelings and maybe not moving forward with our urges. And like, why put myself in that situation though? I don't even know that I want to do that seriously. Like, why put myself in a tempting situation just to kind of like walk away from it going, I'm so proud of myself for not going forward with it. Like, I'd rather just not get near the tempting situation in general. So yeah, I don't know how that's going to play out, but I haven't made an effort to see him really, just one time. And then he wasn't available. So it's like, I haven't tried again. He's tried to see me a couple times and I just wasn't taking the bait. So that's why I thought I would just check in with him and kind of see where he's at. But yeah, so there's that too. But I'm good. I'm good with being alone and celibate and on my own and not thinking about a man, because that just complicates life in general. So anyways, okay guys, I'm gonna head out. I hope you guys have a great week. Yeah, I'll be back. Probably won't do a podcast next week because I'll be back from my trip Saturday night from Washington DC for my ADAP Advocacy Association meeting. Joey's going with me, my daughter, and thankfully it won't be snowing, but I doubt that I'll be able to get any kind of podcast out the next day. I'll be trying to get myself organized, clean my house and all that good stuff. And yeah. Okay. That's all. You guys have a great week. Thanks for listening. Love you guys. Bye-bye for now. Bye, YouTube.